Welcome back to Net Talk after round 4, a smaller round. There was only the two sets of games. Yeah, four games. Adelaide and Melbourne and Perth and Queensland. Pretty good matches this weekend. They're kind of the top 4 teams on both sides, both genders.
Yeah, definitely semi-final, if not grand final and bronze final stink peaks. Probably the best way to describe them. I think a lot of information was sort of observed and taken in by coaches this round. Some interesting results, I think, especially with the Perth Steel and the Queensland Pirates, the Melbourne and Adelaide matches going a little bit closer down to the wire. But the Perth Steel pretty dominant. I believe they played in Queensland.
Yeah, it was in Brisbane.
Yeah.
The notorious air-conditioned stadium.
Yep. All right, we'll just get straight into it. We'll start with the women, Melbourne Vipers versus the Adelaide Storm. Adelaide Storm taking it 3-2. I only caught the end of this match, but it looked like it was basically point for point the entire time. Set scores are pretty close except for that third set. Every other set was very, very close. Both teams finishing on 82 total points. So like exactly the same, which means that Melbourne Vipers would have scored the bonus point. What are your takeaways from this match?
Yeah, it was very interesting to see how those teams played. I watched the whole thing. It was really good. Really showed a probably offensive-minded team in the Vipers against a very defensive team in the Storm.
Yeah.
And the Storm were really great on their defensive touches and their activating of the middle. Rebecca Reeve was incredible.
Outstanding
as a player,
as usual.
Probably one of the best in the game.
Yeah.
Jarvis, the libero, incredible. The defensive dives, there'd be a couple highlights in there. And I think it's Beth Carey. Beth Carey was a very consistent middle for them. Bit of that experienced player that knew how to probably play around the Vipers' defense and how it was set up.
She got set 18 times and scored 9 points.
A lot of usage for a middle.
Yeah.
Probably. And it came in stretches.
So I caught the fourth and fifth set, and the first thing I noticed was Adelaide Storm seemed to take care of the first touch way more than the Vipers, and they were able to utilise their middle far more. And it just put a little bit more pressure on the Vipers being out of system a little bit more, not taking care of the first touch as well as the Adelaide team, and having to rely on stick players far more. For example, Katie Tipping got set 41 times.
Yeah.
That is an awful lot.
She had a lot of kills though too.
She did have 16 kills, but 39% of percentage is not bad. But when you're getting set 41 times, and basically everyone else in the team is under 10 bar 2, I think you're over relying on that particular player.
There is a little Mark Lebedeau report that maybe we'll get into in a future episode as well about evenness on attack, and teams that are more even in their distribution are generally more effective at winning and have a higher win rate across a lot of professional leagues. Yeah. So they probably fell a little bit away, the Vipers, in terms of how even their distribution was.
Yeah, and their middles really didn't see a lot.
Yeah.
Let me just pull up the thing. Alana had 4 attempts. Arwen had the most with 8, and that was it. I believe. That was pretty much it. And then compared to the Adelaide Storm, there was 6 players, 10 or more attempts. So that just means the distribution is so much more even. There's less reliance on one player to do all the work all the time, which we see even at the highest level, teams don't often win.
It also might do them some favours getting towards the end of a season when those players that might not see the high volume are still getting those chances to have big moments. SA, I think this week was the week for the young opposite.
Yeah.
Zaya on the women's side.
Yeah, I believe so.
Was playing opposite there and was very efficient and effective. I think off memory, she was pretty solid.
Yeah. So she Yeah, she was hitting at 31%, 29 balls, 9 points. Maybe a little bit low for that particular position, but like considering how young she is and how experienced she is at this level, that's pretty good. And to come on, and she's also got 1 block point. That's pretty good as well.
Because the men's side ran with a very young opposite as well.
Yeah, we'll switch to the men's side now. So Adelaide Storm men beating the Melbourne Vipers, exactly the same sort of result as the women, 3-2. Again, very close scoreline. The Melbourne Vipers men will take the bonus point. So Adelaide Storm scoring total 86 points, Melbourne Vipers scoring 79. There was just a very slow start from the Vipers, with that first set being 10 points to 18.
They were very fast off the mark in the second set, though, the Vipers. I have a little note down that although it's a compliment for them that they were very fast off the starting line in that second set, but Adelaide Storm was trailing by 5 points, I believe, around that 12-point mark.
Yeah, you're right.
And they didn't use a power play, but they got back the lead. In that second set, with a lot of work from a young opposite there, Finley Bennett,
who like was scoring at 57% effectiveness. Which is unreal. Also, Regan Father's the other opposite. I believe he came into the match later on, but Regan Father's also the other opposite. 13 attempts, 8 kills, 62%. That's really good as well. Again, looking at these two teams and statistics, it's a similar story. Vipers have 2 players that are 20 attempts and above, Paul Sanderson on 27 and Darcy Tague on 20 attempts. Everyone else under 10. Whereas if you look at the Adelaide Storm statistics, everyone else is hovering around that 10 to 15 mark, except for a couple of the bench players that came on, like Finley and Harry Peacock has got a couple of attempts here. probably some dumps. Yeah, I was like, oh,
yeah. There was a couple played high and fast. It probably caught people off guard. I think it might have happened once or twice.
Yeah. But when you've got that equal distribution between your team, and every single player for the Adelaide Storm men is hitting above 50% efficiency, that's pretty hard to stop.
Yeah, they were really effective on their side out plays as well, and they were really good at activating their middles. Charlie Disbury's been actually one of the most effective middles this season. Very high efficiency rate. He
85%. So 11 from 13 attempts is unreal.
Yeah.
And 3 blocks.
He was always available as an option for them, mainly on there because they were passing pretty well as well.
Yeah.
With a different libero to usual. Henry Ambachia was absent.
Yep.
But his replacement was amazing.
Ben Williamson.
Yeah.
Passed at 62%.
Yeah.
And 54% excellent, which is really good.
Yeah.
We're interpreting this as positive passing being your 2 passing and then excellent passing being your 3 passing within that percentage.
So just getting that ball in front of the 3-meter line, sort of central to the court. So your setter has multiple options.
Yeah.
And Harry Peacock is an incredible setter and can find any of those options very frequently.
And he is a setter who knows distribution, I think. And you can see right here that the distribution, it really tells a story. Whereas Damo on the Viper side had a bit of a tougher time. Vipers didn't pass as well because the Adelaide Storm served the skin off the ball. And the distribution is very heavy to that Paul Sanderson and Darcy Tague. Just a little bit too much. Like when I say a little bit, I mean a lot too much. There's literally no one above 10 except for those 2 players, and they're all the way almost reaching 30.
And there was a bit of difference in the rosters for this week. As we said, Henry Ambachia, their typical libero, was absent. Nathan Roberts, their veteran presence that has the most experience probably playing in this league.
Yeah.
Like most experience outside of this league that is in this league.
Yeah.
He has had a lot of national team.
He's just the most experienced player in the league, I think.
And he was not playing, which
he was there, though.
He was there. He was watching. He's the assistant coach for the women's team.
Yeah.
So it probably helped to get them over the line, give him some coaching credit as well as playing.
Yeah.
But they didn't, like the team really probably, people might think they use him as a crutch and they don't. They have so many options around that.
Incredibly deep team, the Adelaide Storm. Like Cooper Peacock came in and did really well, hit at 57%. Only killed 4 balls from 7, but He passed really well at 47%. And I was watching some of this game again, and he was just contributing where he needed to contribute. He was getting digs. He was helping out. He was getting block cover and stuff like that. This game was interesting. The roster changes on both sides were interesting, watching Finley Burnett come in. I have questions about like Melbourne Vipers maybe needed an extra middle rather than an extra opposite this week.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. Probably the difficulty of the 10-man roster.
It's difficult.
You have a middle that's also a utility. So he could have probably slotted into opposite if there were issues there.
Yeah.
There weren't issues there.
No, Dilukezi was great.
I mean, Darcy Tague was great. There was no issues there. So maybe could have used a change up in the middle to counter some things. But otherwise, like, it's tough with the 10-man roster.
Yeah, it is quite tough. But yeah, so like that's just I'm looking here and Adelaide do have two setters as well. But Roy Welsh pretty much came on to serve sub, and that was it. Harry set the whole game.
And we laughed a little bit at home. It's hard being a serving sub because maybe you don't know who you're serving against because he served against another person that has been a sub for the Vipers, Manjot Singh.
Yeah. Who perfect passed.
And we were laughing a little bit watching from home, being like, we know Manjot is the state league best receiver.
Yeah.
Probably would keep the ball away from him, but maybe from interstate, you just see a player that hasn't played the whole game.
Comes fresh on. And you serve him.
You are maybe sometimes encouraged to serve the fresh player.
Yeah.
But I would have steered away because he's a pretty good passer.
I would give it a go because your other options are, Quinn, but if it depends if the state's done their homework or not because Quinn's only played 2 games at AVL. He's quite a younger libero and he's good at it. Me personally, I'm not serving at Manjot ever. We've certainly seen him do damage to our team in our local league, but Rory Walsh came on and did his job really well. But that was the men's game. I certainly think not that this game didn't matter, but this game would have been good for both teams to sort of suss each other out because they're definitely going to see each other in finals one way or another, whether it's, they may not, but highly likely they probably will. But yeah, moving over to the other game on the other side of the country, Perth Steel women and Queensland Pirates women. This was 4 sets to 1 the way of the Perth. I didn't catch this game. Did you catch this game?
Yeah, I caught kind of just after the start of this game when the Perth Steel women were on a bit of a run. They were just really kind of thriving. Right, so it was because which score? They were on quite a good run to begin with and had a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
And when I was sort of watching towards that end of the third set, there was already talks about the bonus point being in play.
They won it.
I think they just lost it. Because
you're right. They just lost it.
When they got to that 5th set, Perth Steel probably took their foot off the gas just a little bit.
Yeah.
So they lost 18-10.
They missed out on the bonus point by 2 points.
Yeah. So if they got to 12 in that 5th set, they would have got a bonus point.
Yeah.
But Queensland Pirates women looked like they were working really hard for that. So that is probably a little bit of a testament to the league, knowing that you are still playing for something, even though you're in a 5th set. But up until that point, Perth Steel looked real good all around.
Perth Steel probably not too worried about that bonus point. They're sitting top of the ladder.
Yeah.
They're probably going to stay there.
So it was probably, I think there were a couple lineup changes towards that 5th just to get other people reps on court. So just to
see lineups and how they deal with the
match. This is probably that last chance teams get to try something before getting to that. Really now it's do or die as soon as you get to finals. And they are in a very sustainable position. I don't think they can get knocked out of finals, and maybe
they definitely
can get knocked to second, but
they'll
be fine.
Don't think they're too worried about that. Perth Steel look pretty good. There's a lot of distribution going around this game, which tells me that the rallies were quite long. I didn't catch it. I assume you. Elise Hislop being dominant as usual, 50% efficiency, 6 block points. That's unreal.
Actually, I couldn't think of how many blocks there were. There was a lot of blocks. Perth were very strong on the block and seemed very calm in those longer points, which is something that's often the first thing that goes is you get a little panicked
the longer
in
the
those moments. The longer rallies go,
you
get more and more panic thinking, can this just be done? Maybe you don't have the endurance, but they looked very calm and their blocks were very just set in good spots.
Yeah. And when I was commentating the match the Perth Steel played against the Melbourne Vipers a few weeks ago, that was what I noticed, is that I actually thought Melbourne Vipers leading into that match were the best out of system team, rather like having Rochelle as a libero. She's very cool, calm, collected, and delivers out of system balls really well. But I actually think Perth Steel do it a little bit better. And this kind of shows. Queensland Pirates also having very high distribution to the three of their outsides being 27, 25, and 20. A little bit lower in hitting percentage. Not a big difference. So Perth still hit at 34% overall. Queensland Pirates hit at 30. So the difference looks like blocking and serving 6 aces to 3, 6 blocks to 11. That is pretty handy. Passing wise is nearly identical. So 30% to 31%. So this tells me this game was pretty much played out of system and blocking.
Yeah, it didn't feel like that big of a gap. It just felt like a fair few points were falling Perth's way.
Yeah.
Which probably was a bit disheartening, and then it ran away, but they were still very good on the Pirates side.
Yeah. By no means will Pirates be disappointed with that. They're still making finals easily. Not necessarily easily, but they'll still have some work to do, but they're in the top 4. Moving on to the men's, almost the same result. Actually, wait a second.
It was very similar. Sorry, I was like, yeah you double checked it, and I was like, no, it was the same.
Very similar. Yeah. There's but Perth Steel men will take the bonus point because they didn't take the foot off the gas as much. They actually end up taking the they took the 5th set. Queensland Pirates took the 4th set, and then Perth Steel sort of bounced back with the 5th set. So 86 points to 66 total. So 20 points advantage, so they'll take the bonus point.
Exactly. Just scraped by for the bonus point.
They'll be pretty chuffed.
Because it is very hard to get 20 points cumulatively away from another team when you're only playing to 18 and when you're playing those 5 sets, because it's winning by 5 points a set.
Yeah, and if
4
this
points a set, sorry.
And that helps them because if this ladder is up to date, which I believe it is, that means that the Steel are on top of the ladder, which is handy, which means they'll have the quote-unquote easier semi-final. Not that any of these semi-finals are going to be easy, but like potentially puts them in a position where they're going to play the preferable semi-final.
Yeah, who they match up with probably better.
Yeah.
As shown by this week, they match up pretty good.
Yeah. So looking at these stats a little bit, Tom Heptonstall bounced back from last week having not the greatest performance, but now he's back up with 16 kills, 57%, 2 blocks, pretty good. Kyle Landers, 48%, 10 kills, and then everyone else around that 30 to 40%. Pretty good distribution here.
Maybe a friend of the show messaged Kai telling him to stop tipping so much and start burning some balls, and he sped that arm up and has back to having one of the heaviest, fastest arms in the comp. So
he really leaps like nothing I've ever seen in my life. Funny thing here is that the first thing I noticed when I looked at this was that Queensland Pirates passed the ball far better than Perth Steel did. And watching Perth Steel a couple of weeks back, I noticed that again they are really good out of system, and having a guy like Tom Heptonstall probably helps with that. You could just throw the ball to the roof and he can sort of go to work. Perth only passed at 31% and Queensland passed at 42%, which is usually a difference like that is rare, but it does happen. But yeah, as usual.
It was a bit of a slightly different Pirates team to the other rounds.
No Ben Bell,
which is a big miss, although Elijah Tabora stepped in pretty good as their next.
Sets really well.
He sets pretty good.
No Mitch Tully as well.
No Mitch Tully, so they lose probably their most effective
probably biggest
outside.
attacker.
Yeah, biggest attacker.
Yeah.
But I think they just got a bit shaken here and there in moments, and just making a few different subs and swaps. Tom Roberts, who's usually a libero for them, who has a lot of good setting experience as well, came on in moments.
Yeah.
And probably came on in moments that were stressful as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a very tough situation, especially as a very effective libero that they could use as well.
Yeah, well,
But he
Kieran
has a lot
Ivers
of
is
he has a lot of setting experience too. But
yeah. I guess I just want to
he
keep him
can
in
do it
the probably want to keep him in the
change.
back
Yeah.
in the back pocket. Brad Sting was pretty good, 45% attack efficient, which is right on the money where you want to be as a pass hitter. Sam Pittarino having 34 attempts, but only 38% efficiency as an opposite is probably a little bit low for what you would usually expect. Like on the other side, Tom Heptonstall sitting at 57%, just for comparison's sake. I didn't see this match. I just haven't had time to watch it, and it was on while I was playing a match in the Australian Club Champs.
Winning matches at Club Champs.
We came away with gold, which was great. Third year in a row. I find it interesting, me personally, looking at this, not having watched the game, but looking at this. Stats really do tell a story, but only like half the story.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at some of these numbers like, I would have liked to see what this looks like on footage.
Yeah, it's very interesting to get your perspective as well, having watched and like saying, they did throw a lot of usage to their opposite and it probably wasn't super effective for stretches. But then it's almost like if you don't trust your player to be re-engaged, then they might be taken out of the game completely. So it's sort of just because someone's hitting efficiency might drop a couple percentage points, you still want to keep setting them here and there. Yeah. Make sure they're still involved to throw off the WA block, which was pretty solid as well.
It's hard to hit around that block.
So, yeah, it's very tough to look at it one way or the other. So you've just got to keep looking from every angle and you'll get a good perspective on games. If you're watching from home, try watching. Keep notes to yourself as well.
Don't be like me. Don't use a stat sheet. It doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah.
But it is interesting.
It is interesting.
And I do like it when you have the stats and the footage so that you can really go through and be like, okay, this is exactly how it correlates and this is exactly how it makes sense in this context. So that were the games this week. Again, I was intrigued by the results on the Perth side. I thought those games would be a bit closer. But interesting to see the top sort of three teams sort of move away. Queensland will have some work to do catching up, looking for finals if they want to sneak a third spot and get the, again, quote unquote, easier semi-final potentially. But moving on. So this weekend, another 2-round matchup only. So the Melbourne Vipers and Adelaide Storm have the bye. So on the Sunday, the 29th of September, Perth Steel will play the Canberra Heat. In Perth, so Warwick Stadium on SBS On Demand.
So Canberra can deal with that time zone difference.
For their sake, it's on the Sunday, so I hope they fly on the Saturday.
Yeah.
As we said in previous episodes, we've done that. It is not a nice experience having to play the same day. You have a 4.5 hour flight or however long it was. Also on the Sunday, a couple hours before that, on 3 p.m, Queensland Pirates go to Sydney to play New South Wales Phoenix. That will be live on AusVolley YouTube.
And that has a bit behind it in terms of Phoenix on the men's side, trying to keep their hopes alive of making finals. It is potentially possible.
No, it is possible. Phoenix will need to play really well. They'll need to take 3 sets to make finals, I believe. Queensland Pirates sitting on 24 championship points. Phoenix well behind them with 15, but they do have a game in lieu.
Yeah.
So they'll need at least a win here, and then they'll need to take a couple of sets next week.
Yeah, you're sort of then leaving it to just hope
they need to work
a few things
hard.
fall in the right way, and they probably won't. So you have to work even harder and go for a 5-0 win.
Yeah. They're going to need to really, really work. And then on the women's side, it's a little bit closer in the score, but the New South Wales Phoenix sitting bottom on the ladder, but they're only 4 points behind the Heat. So good chance for either of those teams to have a real dominant performance and move up into 4th spot and secure that final position before round 6, where New South Wales Phoenix play Vipers and the Canberra Heat play the Storm. So that's going to be really hard for those two teams to come out with a win that week, I think.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to really do well this week.
Yeah, so that wraps up these games and a bit of a look ahead. If you missed the games, I would actually really recommend watching the Vipers Adelaide round. I think the women's game is probably the best exhibition of the women's side this season. Yeah, we've seen this season.
Yeah.
Even if you just watch the last point, I think the last point felt like it went for like 3 minutes. It was a very long.
Well, even I caught the last 2 sets and I was like, this is incredible.
So that was probably the best exhibition of this format and those teams so far.
Yeah.
So go back and give that a watch if you can, and then watch the other round, see how teams are shaking things up going into the end of the season and what everything's looking like, because we're getting closer and closer to finals.
We are. It's literally like 3 weeks away, I think.
Yeah.
Wait, I can actually tell you it's here. Saturday the 12th of October is the semi-finals. Sunday the 13th of October is the gold and bronze in Adelaide, all on SBS On Demand, which will be exciting.
Yeah, very good.
So not long. Teams have really got to lock in for the business end, what we call it, when it's usually when we get to 20 points in a set, which doesn't happen in AVSL.
Business end is from about 11 because you power play and then all of a sudden you're at 17.
We didn't really talk about power plays. There was no real shocking trends this weekend that I saw, but I did miss a lot of the first halves of the games.
It looked like the Queensland Pirates on the men's side forgot to use a power play, but then I think it was just the broadcast missed one. So then everyone was a bit discussing, going, are they finishing a game with a power play in the pocket? And they didn't. They did use it.
They did use it, yeah.
It just was a bit lagging on the broadcast and then caught back up.
Probably the poor commentator was responsible for doing all that as well.
Yes, get too many buttons. Many buttons put in front of you.
It's like doing a score sheet and having to flip the score.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just forget. The one trend I have noticed I wanted to quickly talk about is that it is very rare to me that I've seen a coach use the power play in the first 2 sets. A lot of coaches, to me, from what I've seen so far, are using them only in the last 3.
There actually was something that I nearly forgot. Should have written it down with a big exclamation point. I believe the Perth Steel men used a power play at the beginning of a set. I don't know if it was 0-0. I can't remember. It was very close to the beginning of a set.
I feel like I actually saw this.
Yeah. So they tried it. And
did it work?
Yeah, it was fine. I'm just still really far off that mindset. I know you love the idea of it. I don't like it because I think it just gives too much time for the chance to even back
catch
out
up
towards the end of a set.
I only like it if, I need to see it in context. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So I will
we'll
need to go
relook
back.
at that and we'll give that a bit of in-depth go. This is the one time anyone's going to do it and they're never going to do it again.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see that come time for finals. All right. Thanks for joining us today. Quick one. Not a quick one. We're at 28 minutes. Yeah. It's okay. We tried our best.
But in depth. When there's only 2 games, you can look a bit closer.
I hope today's been a little bit more informative on the stats side of things. We will do the same in the following, because there's only 2 games or 4 games again. Catch our episode this Friday where we just yap about some pro season stuff overseas.
Yeah, a little bit about the Polish league that's going
which is
for
starting,
a little moment. The Aussie players that are over there
and what they're up to and stuff.
Yeah.
And it'll look a little bit different to this episode. Hopefully you enjoy it, but let us know. We will see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Bye.